Our strategy is to support the Iraqi security forces in doing what we will not do for them. The United States is prepared to train them, to equip them, and to back them on the battlefield with coalition military air power as they take the fight to ISIL in their own country. The United States is not going to be responsible for securing the security situation inside of Iraq.
Wow. Now listen, I mean, we've heard this in different forms, maybe in different languages in the past, but now it's in plain English. Iraq, screw you. ISIS, be my guest. Joining us on the Malzberg panel is Brad Hirschfield, of course, the author of You Don't Have to Be Wrong for Me to Be Right and president of CLAL, and Larry Elder, radio host of the Larry Elder Show and author of Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. And Larry, let me start with you here. This was as plain as could be. We're not responsible for the security of Iraq. Goodbye.
This is how we treat our allies. Remember when Obama stood there with al-Maliki and pronounced Iraq sovereign, safe, self-reliant, pulled the troops out over the objections of Panetta, of Gates, of Hillary Clinton, and Robert Gates, the former Secretary of Defense, said that when we pulled out all the troops, we not only lost access and influence, they fired every single one of the generals we had trained and had placed there because of their experience and expertise, and replaced them with political hacks. And now we have the nerve to say, screw you. Unbelievable.
It
Unbelievable.
is. But Brad, with this administration and this president, not surprising.
It's not entirely surprising, and I even want to give him the benefit of that about 10% and then completely explain what was he thinking. The idea that we're responsible for Iraq, actually, I don't think we should be. Iraq is an invention of the last 100 years. I don't actually care about Iraq so much. What I care about is ISIS, and the idea that we're going to walk away from the mess that is ISIS, which is not just about Iraq. That's about exporting global terror. The leadership of ISIS has made it abundantly clear. This is not about Iraq. This is not about Iraq and Syria. This is about restoring an Islamic caliphate to the world. And if we don't think that that's a fight better fought 6,000 miles away than on our own shores, we're crazy. So we can fight about Iraq. I might even argue we should break up Iraq because it was never a real country to begin with. But that has nothing to do with being responsible as a nation for the security events that are going on there, not simply to protect Iraqis, but to protect American citizens.
All right, Larry, we got a new poll out, and at the top of the Republican heap are Bush, Carson, Huckabee, Rubio, and Walker, each with 10%, and close behind Paul with 7, Cruz with 6, and Trump with 5. I mean, it is a real horse race this early on.
Absolutely, and they're all very close together. It's just real early, so you really can't read a whole lot into any of these things. It's about name recognition, and some of these candidates haven't even declared yet, so we have no idea. It's a long way off.
And Brad, notwithstanding what the media, making jokes every time they can about the large Republican field, isn't this better for the party and for the country in the long run than having Hillary and Hillary and Hillary?
So it could be. Here's the thing. I tend to agree with Larry. This is not even a horse race yet. This is more like a rugby scrum. And I think that that's a real challenge. What I think is really important is however big this field gets, it's very important the Republican candidates not savage each other and essentially serve up the talking points that Hillary will need for the general.
Well, only Rand Paul's doing that.
He's the most extreme, and I agree with you. No one is really doing it yet. It's a long season, and that's my only caveat. Don't win this battle to lose the war.
And Larry, what the heck's with Paul? He blames the Republicans on the right for ISIS?
Well, not only that, Rand Paul opposed the war in Iraq, which is fine. However, he used the same idiotic rationale for opposing it as you'd hear on MSNBC. He called it a matter of Cheney and Halliburton, for crying out loud. At the very least, you ought to defend George W. Bush's honor. He didn't lie us into the war, for crying out loud.
All right, we're coming back, folks. More of the panel. Wait till you hear who Sidney Blumenthal was working for while he was advising Hillary. Don't go away. All right, folks, we're back with part 2 of the Malzberg panel. Brad Hirschfield and Larry Elder are here. But first, a few more details on the indictment of former Speaker of the House Dennis Hastert. He was charged today with structuring cash withdrawals to evade currency transactions, reporting requirements, and lying to the FBI, according to the U.S. Attorney in Chicago. So, again, nothing much to talk about here. Just thought we'd bring you the few details that we do have. Okay, so We know that Hillary got emails from her old friend Sid Blumenthal because she has so many old friends and they communicate with everybody. And Sidney Blumenthal, who reportedly had an interest in Libya, financial interest in Libya, wanted to work in the State Department. And Obama said, no way is Sidney Blumenthal working in the State Department. So, guess what? Now we find out that the Clinton Foundation hired him, gave him 10 grand a month, and so he was being paid, Larry, by the Clinton Foundation while he was sending Hillary emails about Libya and advising her on Libya, and then she would forward those emails, reportedly some of them on, and not say they came from Sidney Blumenthal. I mean, does it ever end?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, of course, the defense will be there's no evidence that there was a quid pro quo between his involvement and whatever measure Hillary approved or didn't approve regarding Libya. The second thing is we ought to begin every conversation with this. We only have the emails that Hillary turned over. She erased tens of thousands of them, wiped down her server, and the server has not yet been subpoenaed. So we really have no idea really what were in these emails.
That's right, Brad.
Well, I would say two things. The first point that Larry made is, maybe he'll say I'm wrong. I don't actually care if we have direct correlation on this one. What I know is that it seems to be a daily occurrence that we are sucked into the vortex of personal patronage, policy, philanthropy, and politics called the Clintons. And that is simply not acceptable. So whether there's a direct correlation on this one or not, there is a serious problem here. And I don't think it's going to get any better. I don't think it's going to get any better.
Yeah, I'm hearing Bill.
Yeah, so am I, which is always a treat. I guess you sent Bill to correct me.
It was the ghost of Bill. Now, there's more. There's more because, and again, we have to point out these are Clinton-released emails. She released them, and some of them show that as Secretary of State, she had an interest in arming Libyan opposition groups using private security contractors before the fall of Gaddafi. And of course, a lot of the criticism has been, and the question has been, what was a private security group with links to a terrorist group doing guarding the embassy in Benghazi or the compound in Benghazi in the first place, Larry?
Well, it also shows you that she was aware of how dangerous it was, and therefore one could argue that she was negligent and irresponsible in not providing more defense for these 4 Americans who were killed.
I mean, Brad, and she, I mean, this just raises more questions. I wonder why, this one wasn't left on the server. It's just, really, I mean, this one is a bad one, too.
Well, you wonder, I don't think they know the difference between what's good and what's bad, because we were saying during the break, I think with the Clintons, the issue is, even when they're right, they actually think the world works for them as opposed to them working for the country. And once you get into that place, you lose the thread of what's right and what's wrong, and you simply ask the same question over and over again. Is it working for me? And if it's working for me, then it must be okay. And that's exactly where I think they often are. It's a kind of politics of narcissism. I actually think they often get things right, but that has nothing to do with being fundamentally not trustworthy because the barometer is broken. The sense of what you measure your behavior against seems to be missing.
Larry, every time I hear, we know Senator Menendez was indicted, and at the time, I remember the comparisons between what Hillary, what we know Hillary did, even though there's no proof to what we know Menendez did, and now, Hastert, he might have withdrew money, so a red flag wouldn't have come up. I'm just saying, they say you could indict a ham sandwich, and based on what Brad just said, and the trustworthiness being 53% don't trust her in the latest poll, how can anybody who doesn't trust this woman, with all that's going on, pull the lever for her?
Because she will be squared off against some dastardly Republican who is against climate change, wants to repeal Obamacare, wants to cut taxes on so-called rich people, wants to approve Keystone Pipeline. Believe me, all the people who are criticizing Hillary on the left will close ranks and unite against whatever dastardly Republican is up against her come in the fall. Trust me.
I think it's absolutely right. Larry's got it perfectly. It's actually why, if people want to defeat Hillary, the Republicans are not going to be faced with a choice that Democrats were faced with before Bill Clinton. Are Republicans prepared to take victory in the election over ideological purity?
No.
If they are, they can win. If not, they're going to lose.
I did a Give Me 5, my commentary yesterday at the end of one of the hours about Greg Gutfeld, who said, Republicans have to stop bothering about who you sleep with and gay marriage and who you marry. And you know what? I said, if that's the cost, then count me out, Larry.
Well, the formula that the left always gives is act more like us, be more like us, be more like Democrats, tax, spend, regulate, and they still won't vote for you. Remember when John McCain was beloved by the left?
Right.
He was called Maverick John McCain until he became the nominee. Then he was a dastardly Republican. That's how they roll.
No, that's a very good point. All right, gentlemen, great. I'm sorry, Brad, but
No
the
worries.
clock has grabbed us. Brad Hirschfield and Larry Elder, thank you both. Great panel. Coming up next, senior editor for investigation for IB Times, David Sirota. Don't go away.